View of this, he said, as law-abiding organization, the leadership of our party have decided to approach the courts to put a stop to their evil machinations of disrupting our well-laid down programs for subsequent elections. We wish to reiterate that our National Working Committee is intact, except the former National Publicity Secretary who has been expelled by a properly constituted National Executive Committee and NNPP. And since the dissolution of the Board of Trustees, the 2022 publicly in the presence of INEC and the media has not constituted a new board. So the BOT is not what one person can sit in one corner to constitute. So he said here in Osun State, we wish to pass a vote of confidence to Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, who has used his years of political experience to stabilize our party and brought us to limelight. All right, that's what you can do on that. Critical issues that I find curious here, Barrister Ekina, is this. What are some of the legal processes of expelling the founder of a party? Now, because he said that INEC was involved in the process of constituting and all of these are basically followed protocol. So why would someone just wake up and go to the media and gather somewhere say we have expelled the founder of a party? Because this has been going on for so long, though they have approached the court. But for the education of those who may be following this story, well, what is the process that this is supposed to go through?
Yeah, I think it's just like every other association. I've always said that the political parties are themselves associations. What distinguishes the political party from the other associations incorporated under the Corporate Affairs Commission is that their objective is political, and then their registration is vested in the Independent National Electoral Commission, created under Section 153 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's just because they aren't required to go to the CAC, the Corporate Affairs Commission for Incorporation. So they are registered and incorporated by Independent National Electoral Commission. And fundamentally, too, for a political party or an association to be registered a political party, it is required that you also will register a constitution. And it is in that constitution you would have the creation of the offices, the provisions with respect to discipline of officers in that constitution. And so when you begin to hear that individuals or a number of individuals or an extraction of membership of a political party are beginning to act in such a way that perhaps depart from the provisions of the constitution, then you could just imagine the impunity that appears to be habitual and characteristic of the Nigerian state. But otherwise, basically when you ask, what may lead to the suspension, or if you like, a reprimand, perhaps, suspension and expulsion of any person from any organization would have to do with an infraction to the provisions of the constitution of that political party or that association. Now, so for political parties now, it means that you must have some allegation of commission of infraction against the provisions of the constitution of a political party. And then there should be a mechanism for addressing that infraction or that alleged commission of infraction against the provisions of the Constitution. And then there must also be an organ within the Constitution that should be vested with the power to do so. It's a different thing when it comes to political parties. The procedure and requirement for suspending or expelling a national executive member and any other member of that political party. At what level of the structures or organs of the political party that power is vested? That's why before now, even for the other political parties, you would hear where they say a ward executive cannot expel or suspend a national officer, a national executive council member or committee member, or a national working committee member. But sometimes you now hear and see how political party members, some would meet in hotels, some would meet in some unimaginable places, and then they are doing these kind of things. So we need to understand first, what's that infraction? What's that?
Well, he was accused of mismanaging or misappropriating by the opposition within the party.
What opportunity has been given for this person to defend
Well, they invited
the
him, they first of all suspended him and invited him to come to answer to them to explain what happened. About $1 billion they said they got from the sales of farm. Well, the party founder being Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso didn't show up. And then the next thing, they decided that he's going to be expelled from the party, and they did. And then this other group are coming up to say, we don't know you. The public publicity sector was expelled because they're saying that, oh, we gathered this money for the party. It was from the sale of farm. you should be able to account for that. So that's basically the reasons that they gave for this.
Okay, like I said, there has to be a reason there. There has to be an alleged infraction of the provisions of the Constitution. And then fundamentally, there has to be a procedure for that discipline. And then there also has to be an opportunity for the other party to be heard. The fundamental right to fair hearing inures also to members of associations or political parties. So you can actually even challenge if your association or the leadership of association is seeking to discipline you for whatever alleged infraction, if you aren't given the opportunity to finish them. So but if all of these have actually happened, then some fundamental questions that may also arise there is also how are political parties structured and governed. Corporate governance must be incorporated in the affairs of our political parties in this country. Forms are sold. Do you pay monies for as returns for sale of forms into somebody's account? What about the structures and organs of the political party? How is money? How are forms sold? Who sells forms? Who is it? Financial secretary? Who is the treasurer? Because these organs exist by the constitution of that political party. So, and how can a single person access the account of that organization if monies were paid into the organization? Right. Well, yes, they are subject to interrogation, no doubt. There's no person that is above and bigger than the political party. So it doesn't matter what I say is the founder of the political party or the leader of the political party. If there is an alleged infraction that's against the provisions of the Constitution, you're subject to the Constitution, you're bound by the provisions of the Constitution. You could call to answer. But I think what is worrisome really is the lack of, if you like, procedure. And again, the manipulations in political activities and processes in Nigeria, that you see that some person, when you probably feel that you're edged out from the center of a political party, you want to get. That's why you could hear now that another person will say, oh, the former police secretary had actually been expelled, and then the gentleman is acting that he's not. So you say, no, I've not been expelled. And another fundamental question is, who has the power to convene the National Executive Committee meeting or the National Working Council Committee meeting? Who has the power to expel or suspend or reprimand any official at all? What's the legitimacy in doing all of this? Is it a thing that an individual could do, or a thing that a group would do, or a thing that an organ of the organization would do? So these are fundamental questions that will be asked. I don't have more than probably what's in the public
domain.
Yes, about
all right, we'll just leave them to keep answering those questions, and we hope they can find a way around it. But we'll return to open conversation after this break. Stay with us.
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
What our access to our money will put in the bank.
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the turn thing. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
people into the country illegally. That is amazing. Human trafficking.
They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what's the blood. I have fought a very family.
Natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice. What about access to our money we put in the bank?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites, which I
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
All right, welcome back to Open Conversation, everyone. Now, the National Chairman of All Progressive Congress, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, has commended Wednesday's judgment of the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal that validated the victory of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the 2023 election. In a statement issued in Abuja, Ganduje described the verdict as thorough, stressing that it addressed all the issues raised by the petitioners. According to the former Kano governor, the judgment was a true reflection of the mandate Nigerians delivered at the last presidential election. Consequently, the APC national chairman urged the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and his counterpart in the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, to cooperate with the present administration in its effort to address the myriad of challenges facing the country. said that the resolve by both politicians to challenge Tinubu's victory at the tribunal spoke volumes of their faith in the nation's judicial system. He said, I had no doubt whatsoever in my mind that the president would come out victorious, considering the massive support Nigerians gave him and our party, the APC, before and during the presidential election. He said, may I also congratulate the Nigerian judiciary for adjudicating on the issues arising from the presidential election without fear and favor by doing the right thing with this judgment. He said it's a precedent that has been set for electoral matters in the country. Now, on this congratulations and congratulating the judiciary, I want to ask you an honest question. As a Nigerian first, not as a lawyer right now. If an election, there is election in November for some states, and in 2027, and some states by next year, as a Nigerian, would you, after we have given our mandate to President Tinubu and the judiciary have confirmed that according to Ganduje, would you go to the polls? If there's an election now, would you go to vote? And why?
Well, I will answer directly that as a citizen who has always held on to the civic rights of participating in elections, and I wouldn't want that right be taken away by anyone, doesn't matter the reservations I may have, I'll still go and vote. And that's why I would also continue to enjoin Nigerians, urge them and join them to exercise that civic responsibility. And it is your right to participate in determining the affairs of governance. Who vote? But whether there are mixed feelings, certainly yes. With the expectations of Nigerians, and particularly even myself, like you rightly said, not just as a lawyer, but as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with expectations of improved welfare, and of course, enhanced security of my life and my property and everyone around me. And then for improved economy, social realities, better environment, and all of those aspirations that Nigeria has as a country, unfortunately domiciled under Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I would go out to vote, but have reservations. Yes, so let's say particularly to Dr. Ganduje, he would have to congratulate his political party. He would have to, he's the one that appears to be the beneficiary of the verdict of the justice of the Court of Appeal that sat as judges of the presidential election petition to court yesterday. His victory for him and his political party, his victory for the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and particularly Ganduje as the chairman of the ruling party. But whether it is victory to the majority of Nigerians should be his concern and should be the fundamental question here. And analyzing the issues that were canvassed yesterday, yes, no doubt, credit to the justice of the Court of Appeal that sat as judges of the tribunal. Yes, the consolidation of the three petitions and then the consideration of the several legal issues that were emerged in those petitions. Yes, but at this time, the question or concern should be how satisfied are Nigerians with our electoral system, with the electoral process. How has this judgment come to affect the expectations of Nigerians in the electoral process and the aspirations of Nigerians to a more democratic state, particularly with enhanced electoral system? That's the question really here. So there are a lot of disappointments, and I'm also disappointed, not particularly about how the judges, the justice handled the petition and then the outcome of the petition itself, but about the realities that have confronted our electoral system and process, and particularly even with the effect of this decision yesterday. Let's be very practical about this and put in context. We have had a very skewed electoral process and elections. We have had the history of our elections in a way that Nigerians have always felt, and rightly so, that there have been subversion of our elections and our right to determine who will govern us. A system where you will have election conducted in a polling unit, and then the citizens, electorates in that polling unit, would not even know the outcome of their elections, was some history that was in fact, unimaginable in the Nigerian political system and process. Then we transited to a point where the Electoral Act 2010 got to introduce some element of electronic device in our electoral system, in the voting process. That is the card reader. Now, unfortunately, it was still the courts that held down that invention of the card reader. When the courts actually were put to the point that, oh, card reader was not recognized in the laws. That was how the decisions came up at that time. When reliance was placed on card reader, it came out from the courts that the card reader was not recognized by the laws.
We have more of that conversation. But let's start from the FCT issue.
Okay.
Now, the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, led by Justice Haruna Samini on Wednesday, dismissed the claims of the Labour Party and its presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, that they won 25% of the needed votes in the Federal Capital Territory. Now, during the 2023 presidential election on February 25th, the Labour Party and Obi won 25% by securing about 59% of the votes cast. Neither President Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress, 19% they got there, nor Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, who got 15%, scored up to 25% of the votes in the Nigerian capital ruling on the petition. The five-man tribunal dismissed the charge, saying Abuja is like the other 36 states of the Federation. According to the tribunal, FCT residents have no special privileges as the petitioners claim. Okay, now, I'm going to start this from a layman's perspective. I'm not a lawyer.
Excellent.
Good. If Abuja is similar to other 36 states, according to these learned justices, okay? How come Abuja don't have a governor like every other state?
That's the question.
That's number one. How come Abuja, what allocations and things that go to other states where the governor decides what road to be done? Just Wike, for instance, is the FCT minister. There are actions he cannot readily take without going to the president. So now, these are the questions a lot of us have. We're not lawyers, we're not politicians. We don't know how these things are done, but there are basic commonalities. You can say, okay, if this is this, why is this not like that? But let's look at it legally speaking. Why is Abuja not different from other states? Because this 25% on the FCT has been a major political conversation during the election area. Why did it suddenly change? Is there anything in the Constitution that says Abuja is not, it shouldn't be at 25% on the Electoral Act? Please educate us.
Now, this Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria remains the ground norm and then the principal law that should regulate every authority and any person in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Constitution is very clear as to the federative units that compose the Federal Republic of Nigeria and named them. Didn't just name, the schedule to the Constitution did not just name the 36 states, but actually described the 36 states, including the local governments constituting those 36 states. And they are distinct. We have just 36 states in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And then those states have local governments. The states have unique features that make them to be states. And this uniqueness do not appear in the Federal Capital Territory. You have mentioned some, specifically the chief executives of the respective 36 states are governors, and they elected. Whoever is to lead or head the state is elected. Then the respective states have houses of assembly to legislate for them, and then they have local government. These are unique features of states. And once these features do not exist in any other, if you like, conjecture, it means that that conjecture cannot be a state in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, the Federal Capital Territory also is clearly described in the Constitution as to even the boundaries, the land boundaries, the composition, the units in the Federal Capital are not even local governments, they're area councils. Why then that difference exists? For the Federal Capital Territory, there are 6 area councils. For states, there are local government councils. Now, when you get to each state, you have the executive as a governor. In the Federal Capital, you don't elect any person to head the federal government, Federal Capital Territory, in that direct regard. That's why the Constitution, down to Section 299, and between 299 and 1 of the Constitution. For liking, and you see, in simple literature, when you use the reference like or as, it's similar. It's not direct. So you cannot say Abuja is a state. It's a different thing to say Osun is a state, Rivers State is a state, Cross River is a state, Bayelsa is a state. But Abuja is like, it resembles, it is like a state. And that is why you do not have a governor for the Federal Capital Territory, but the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is elected as a president, is likened to be the governor of the Federal Capital Territory. And that's why the Constitution is clear. It says, where reference is made with respect to a state, to a governor, for the Federal Capital Territory is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Where reference is made to a state with respect to legislature, House of Assembly.
I'm going to have to interrupt you there, Barrister.
So I laid this foundation so that you understand that it is not.
Nigerians, there is confusion in our minds, in our heads.
Already.
Barrister Henry, please open and read the Constitution for us, because right now we're having open conversation. I want it to be as open as possible, because the things we heard yesterday, coming from these justices, I'm yet to comprehend them. As a lay person, I'm wondering how the man on the street is doing with all of this information. If you can, teach us. This is 1999 Constitution.
Chapter 3 of the Constitution deals with the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, and general supplementary provisions thereof. And so it will tell you clearly the Federal Capital Territory. It tells you that there shall be a Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, the boundaries of which are as defined in Part 2 of the first schedule to this Constitution. That's why I say it's clearly described. Then it goes to tell you that the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, shall be, that's 298, shall be the capital of the Federation and the seat of government of the Federation. It is not a state. Now, Section 299 said the provisions of this Constitution apply to the Federal Capital Territory as if it were, because this is where some of those who hold that view will rely on. They say as if it were, meaning it is not.
Good. Now, hold on. English language. Similar is not a constant. They are closely related. That's the word similar. That's what the word similar comes in. It's closely related, but it's not exact. So if that is the case, again, going back to you, what you have just read and explained, because I'm trying to see how much information we can bring out from all of this. That's why I said you must come to the studio this morning. If now what we are looking at as we speak is the fact that the justices of the tribunal, presidential tribunal, looked at us and told us that suddenly, because of this particular judgment, the FCT is not like every other. So should we begin to demand for them to get a governor for the FCT? Then we are Nigerians, we should have a right to do that.
Maybe that's where they're going to. So again, like I said, so that it's not like I just mentioned, so as if it were one of the states of the Federation. So when you say as if it were one of the states of the Federation, you wouldn't speak exactly the same way if we were talking about the 36
states. It is one of the states.
As if it was one of them, meaning it's not. Then you now say, hey, all the legislative powers, the executive powers and the judicial powers vested in the House of Assembly, the governor, and the courts shall respectively vest in the National Assembly.
Hold on.
So Barrister,
hold on. Pastor Henry, hold on. You see, we have an open conversation today. Now, let's bring something to bear. Are you just saying us, for those of us who are not aware, so let me ask like a layman now, because we are not the learned gentlemen, you lawyers are, so we agree we are not learned.
Meant for all of us.
No, but you are the learned. We are not learned, so we agree. Now that you have our Constitution as a ground norm, are you trying to tell us that the justices told us that FCT is similar to other states, but they don't have a National Assembly?
They don't have a National Assembly.
They don't have a government.
They don't have a House of Assembly.
They don't have, they don't have a House of Assembly. The laws that determines what happens to them is what the National Assembly determines. It's okay. We're trying to find the similarities.
That's what it is.
It's okay. Continue, sir.
Unlike a state where they have a House of Assembly, you do not have that for the Federal Capital Territory. Where even this Constitution is to be altered, that is required at least 2/3 of the number of states in this country should pass, the House of Assembly should pass to concur with the provisions. It does not consider the Federal Capital Territory in that regard, apart from what the National Assembly is doing. So when it comes to a governor, right, with reference to a state, to a governor, if you are to talk about the FCT, it's the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
All right.
If it is a deputy governor, it's like the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So you cannot exactly say the Federal Capital Territory is a state.
And I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay, go ahead. I thought you were done with that.
So now, back to the election and the requirements with respect to what a candidate to be elected to the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria would command in terms of the votes in this country. The Constitution is clear to the effect that apart from the other requirements of getting majority of the votes cast, right, in an election that you have multiple, at least 2 candidates or more, not in the situation which we have rarely had of a single candidate.
Yeah.
That's one. Apart from having that majority that you are required to have, because you're going to be the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you are required to have at least 25%, that is 1/4 of the number of votes cast in at least, in at least 2/3 of the number of states. And again, that 2/3, when they say the number of states in this country, like I said, we have just said here, it should be 36 states.
Yep.
We can't add, we can't remove the number of states in this constitution. Even if you agitate to create a new state out of River State or out of Akwa Ibom State or any of the states today, you can't just do it by proclamation. You have to go through the procedures of the Constitution, meaning that as at now, that's why it's been difficult for even a state that desires expansion of local governments. They can't do so. You hear them name administrative areas or different names. Bayelsa has, Lagos has. You can't even create a local government because it's already named here. That's the difficulty you have. The same way you cannot add to the number of states. Now, when it comes to the Federal Capital Territory, because the Constitution has deemed or likened the president, that person that will emerge as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to be like the governor of the Federal Capital Territory, that's why the drafters of the Constitution, their intendment is that that person should be as much as popular in the Federal Capital Territory to be able to also have votes that he has won reasonably so, up to the point of at least 25% of the votes that we are cast in that place. Because he's going to be their governor. Now somebody now tells...
So he needs to win their acceptance.
He needs to have some reasonable level of popularity. If for no other reason, he is going to be like their governor.
Good.
Would we then say that it is reasonable and responsible by the intent of the Constitution that a person can become the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by reason of that being the governor of the Federal Capital Territory by having perhaps no vote at all from there? Or by having at least, maybe even up to 5% of the votes cast. So the total vote cast in FCT, you can have 5%, it doesn't matter, provided you can have 25% in all of the other states.
I said I was going to put you. I said I was going to put you.
Is that reasonable? I don't think so.
So I said I was going to put you in a spot, and then you just put yourself in a spot because you're a lawyer, and then we are bringing all of it to your doorstep, lawyers across Nigeria, because we need answers. Nigerians, we need answers. We need someone to talk to us. What we saw yesterday is not just heartbreaking. It brought a level of hopelessness that a lot of Nigerians don't know where to start from as it is. In as much as we're not prone to violence like some other countries, but there has to be answers.
And we are bound by the judgment.
And of course, we are bound by the judgment. We don't have a choice.
It's valid.
We don't have a choice.
The reasoning of the justice, excellent. But we still have a responsibility to analyze and explain to Nigerians provisions that are constant and extant in our Constitution.
Because in as much as, for you, you're a lawyer, but for us, in as much as they are justices, the grand norm, this Constitution is what should speak for us first. Now, when someone gives a judgment, we want to find out, is it in tandem with what is written in the Constitution, which is why we're having this conversation. We don't have the power to change whatever they have done, but we have a power to actually understand it better, because I don't have Justice Nami right now to sit down here to answer my questions. So we have lawyers. So right now, we have been told that whether you win FCT or not, you can be the president of Nigeria.
That's what this judgment is.
All right, now let me bring this to bear right now. I haven't said that. Where does the right of these people, Nigeria, these Nigerians who live, natives and residents in the FCT, who have no governor or state assembly to determine what they want, where is their right to determine who becomes a president fall in with this kind of judgment? Because you basically said, whether you accept the person or not, he or she is going to come up to be your president and then
by extension, be your governor.
So where does the rights of the residents and natives of the FCT then count in all of this?
While in a state, to even draw that clearer, while in a state, for you to emerge to be the governor in a state, you can see the requirements there. For you to emerge to be the governor in a state, you must first have a majority of the vote cast in that state.
True.
And then the same way, just as the state is to the president, you must have at least 25% in at least 2/3 of the local governments in that state. So now, why is it there so that the people in the state will have a reasonable level of popularity of this person to govern over them? Then you say for the FCT, the person will be like their governor. Shouldn't even matter as to whether he's not popular or whether his popularity is 1%.
So did these judgments then consider the rights of the natives who have been clamoring against marginalization for so long? In fact, in the ministerial lease this period, they insisted that they must be given a slot. They have been crying for marginalization for so long, and then you pass a judgment and tell them that whether whoever becomes the president likes your face or not, whether you vote for the person or not, the person is going to be your president. Does their rights count by the constitutional provision of the right to a citizen to exercise their franchise?
Well, in as much as what we are doing is post-election or post-judgment analysis, in my view, I've exposed to the best of my understanding, and then it's the constitutional provision here and the implications there are, then the wisdom of the justice of the Court of Appeal. They have held the position, as some school of thought also have held, that look, it doesn't matter what the popularity, the level of popularity of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria with respect to the residents of the Federal Capital Territory. And those who are going to be like the subject of the governor in that regard. But that's what it is. That's what the decisions of our courts really is. And good thing, it is nowhere expressed in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that the Federal Capital Territory does not. Rather, on the other hand, those who interpret, which is my view too, in the requirement as to commanding at least 1/4 of the votes in the federal capital, I mean in the states, the Constitution rather added the Federal Capital Territory. That is our interpretation, is that and the Federal Capital Territory. I interpret it to be addition. That is, the Federal Capital Territory too should be one of those places that candidate should have at least 1/4. Now I say, look, for Vivian to be the manager of XYZ company, you have to have this here. And you have in the various branches you have. You have to have this in this branch, this in this branch, and
at the
that other branch. Meaning that whatever is it that I am listing to be what you need to have in this branch, in this branch, in this branch, is the same thing you should have and that other branch. So if you say have majority of the votes cast in at least 2/3 of the number of states, have at least 25%, 1/4 of the votes cast in at least 2/3. And in the federal, that means if I read it to even say you want to add a word, you say, and in the Federal Capital Territory, you should have that 25%.
So the present president of Nigeria.
Different.
So now, okay, now the present president of Nigeria, everyone doesn't have this requirement, but we have been told that it does not matter. It is similar. We took note of that.
No, but by Section 6 of the Constitution, it is the power vested in the judiciary to interpret the provisions of the Constitution. And then in the wisdom of the justices, their interpretation is that it doesn't matter. That and the Federal Capital Territory didn't mean that that candidate should have also at least 25%. And rather by extension, that even if the candidate didn't have the 25%, it should still be their governor.
That's basically what it is. So in essence, they do tell us that the writers of the Constitution is guided by the spirits of the writers. Now, we are being told that the justices, whatever interpretation to give to a law written in English language that we all can read and understand, that we'll have to take it that way. Do we have a choice? I don't think so. Now, the Presidential Election Petitions Court has ruled on the allegations brought forth by the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party against President Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress. Recall that Atiku had accused Tinubu of holding dual citizenship and having a drug conviction in the United States. Well, Atiku therefore claimed that Tinubu was not qualified to contest the presidential election held on February 25th, but a member of the panel of justices of the court, Justice Moses Ugo, while delivering judgment following objections raised by the All Progressive Congress and Bola Tinubu concerning Atiku's claims, declared that the grounds of Atiku's allegations were considered new issues and therefore they could not be accepted as part of the petition. The objections raised by the APC and Tinubu were upheld as they argued that Atiku and the PDP had introduced new issues not previously pleaded in their petition regarding non-qualification. Well, Atiku, in his response to Tinubu's challenge, contended that he was constitutionally barred from running for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria due to his forfeiture of $460,000 as part of compromise agreement related to narcotics-related crimes. This forfeiture took place in the United States District Court in Northern District of Illinois, Eastern Division. It could also be recalled that Atiku claimed that Tinubu had failed to disclose his dual citizenship, which included Nigerian and Guinean citizenship. The tribunal also dismissed both claims by Atiku. I leave that at your doorstep.
These are clear legal issues. I've actually said in commendation to the decisions of the justice that there are a lot of legal issues that I think we need to probably pick out, and then moving forward, particularly political parties and then politicians, to pay attention to probably preparing for another election, and this is one of those issues. What exactly will constitute the disqualifications with respect to a candidate to election to the office of a President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? They are extant in the Constitution, and the Constitution is clear that no instrument, no act, or any memorandum or any instrument at all that will add or take away the provisions of the Constitution with respect to qualification and disqualification. Okay. So when it's with respect to disqualification, the assertion that dual citizenship and the order of some criminal infraction, or if you like, the judgment of a court in the United States with respect to forfeiture. Now, that's akin to some of the provisions in the disqualification section of the Constitution. But what's important here is what the court interpreted with respect to legal considerations. Sorry, now, the court didn't quite say.
We saw what the court interpreted yesterday. Yes. We want to know what the Constitution says about at least dual citizenship for someone who is contesting to be the president of Nigeria, and also when it comes to having a dent with regard to forfeiture, forfeiture of any kind in a drug-related issue.
The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with respect to the requirements for qualification, requires that you should be a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by birth, or that of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by birth. So you can't be, and then it's important to say that under, I think, Chapter 3 of the Constitution, which deals with citizenship of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, there are three categories of being a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, either by birth, or by registration, or by naturalization. So both registration and naturalization are citizenship status, not naturally being by birth. Yeah. Now, for the first category of being by birth, which is that the Constitution requires for qualification to be a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, specifically by birth for the officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President, I mean. So that would mean that that candidate should be. But whether the candidate has another citizenship, the Constitution is to the effect that if you have renounced your citizenship other than that of birth, meaning that that of birth cannot be renounced in any way. When it says other than the citizenship by birth, meaning that it's either citizenship by naturalization or registration. Yeah. So if you renounce a citizenship, right, and take a citizenship of another country at a time, then you shouldn't be qualified. I don't know whether this is clear to anyone who's listening.
It is very,
First, you need to understand, when this was read, I have had the opportunity to explain this too. Please. When you go to the citizenship question, you'll find out that there are three categories so that you don't mix them up. Okay. And then you also will now go to what the Constitution requires with respect to citizenship, particularly the disqualification if you hold another citizenship. If
you're running for office, yes.
So it is not that of natural, of citizenship by birth, but it relates to citizenship by naturalization or by registration, which is citizenship other than by birth. Now, these are critical issues. But I think what appeared to be a bit of a technical leaning by the decisions of yesterday was that these were issues that were introduced as fresh issues as the proceedings were going on. So that at the beginning, in their pleadings, in the petition, they did not raise this issue. Okay, and I cannot raise an issue midway. We don't ambush parties.
We're not here to speak for Atiku or for what him and his lawyers can take care of that.
Yes.
What concerns us as citizens of Nigeria.
Yes.
Dual citizenship, not by birth. Yeah. You said that that person will have to renounce it, right? According to the Constitution. Good. That wasn't done. Number two, Justice Ugo is saying that it's a fresh area for them in this, that it's not. But the question is, did they even try to say this is not? Yes, maybe Atiku submitted this along the line and all of that. But what we are saying is, can you look at us in the face and tell us what the Constitution says about who should? Because Atiku said that Tinubu knew that this was against the constitutional provision for the office he's running, yet he did not renounce his Guinean citizenship. He had it and went on to contest for the citizenship, the president of Nigeria. And that is the body of their argument, that it's not even about when they are bringing to their knowledge that, hey, this man knew full well that he shouldn't do this, and he consciously broke the law by doing this. Then the justices did not even address it. He just told us that it's a fresh issue. It's not. But we want to know, maybe if you want to discard it as a fresh issue, but what is the provision of the law? Because that's what we're looking at. And you told us that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. And we are the common people, and we are looking at, we want to know, what did the Constitution say? And then you just said it's a fresh issue and it was introduced. How does that affect us as a people, other than knowing what the truth is?
Well, maybe just to the particular reference to the section that deals with that disqualification, section 137 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because it deals with disqualification. I've said that there are provisions for qualification.
Yes.
And then when you go for the provisions for qualification, there are just about 4 fundamental requirements for qualification to the office of the president. That you have to be a citizen of Nigeria by birth. That's section 131 of the Constitution. He has to attain the age of 40 years. Then he has to be a member of a political party and is sponsored by that political party. And then he has to be educated up to school certificates. And this is one point that Nigerians also need to understand, that the interpretation section of the Constitution has explained what education up to at least school certificate level means, so that we didn't need to go into that. It's much more than the first school living that people would think. That a whole lot of the interpretation is there. So having considered these provisions for qualification, the Constitution went further at 137 and said, if a person, right, for disqualification, that a person shall not be qualified for election to the office of president if subject to the provisions of section 28 of this Constitution, he has voluntarily acquired the citizenship of the country other than Nigeria. That's another country, another citizenship. Or except in such cases as may be prescribed by the National Assembly, he has made a declaration of allegiance to such other country. Now, that cannot be read in isolation without going to section 28 of the Constitution, because they're subject to that. That is where I said chapter 3 deals with citizenship and gives us the categories of citizenship, where citizenship by birth is dealt with by section 25 of the Constitution. And then the one that I said is by registration is dealt under section 26. So you now go down to the one that deals with naturalization under 27. So the 28 they are referring to, which deals with dual citizenship, is to the effect that subject to the other provisions of this section, a person shall forthwith his Nigerian citizenship if not being a citizenship by birth. That's what makes it different. If that person is a citizenship by birth, then it really doesn't apply. But if it's a citizen by naturalization or registration, then this section will affect him. So I don't want to make specific reference to who is president now, but general analysis is that if Mr. A is a citizen of Nigeria by birth already, that takes him away from this disqualification. Because this disqualification is referring to the provision of section 28,
so, but
which
in
is
this
to the effect that the person not being a citizen of Nigeria by birth, if he acquires or retains the citizenship or nationality of a country other than Nigeria, of which he is not a citizen by birth.
Good.
Meaning that another clause there is that if this person is a citizen by birth in that other country, you can't also challenge his dual citizenship in that regard. Let's say our children who are citizens of Nigeria, by the explanation, because by birth is extended, even when you're one of your parents is, but he's also born elsewhere, you can't hold him liable of this dual citizenship for disqualification to run elections, if he takes up the citizenship of that other country.
Good. So now we have a president who we allegedly...
Who was not born in that other country?
Who allegedly was not born, because we don't know. We don't know if he were...
No, he's a citizen of Nigeria by birth. But that other country, I don't know what country.
Do you have any evidence that he's a citizen of Nigeria by birth? How do you know that?
I'm not sure anybody's question. I'm not sure anybody's questioning.
You the hospital where you were born.
No, I'm not sure anybody has raised the question.
You know the community where you were born. You know where you were born. I know where I was born. Everybody knows where. We've not even had that conversation with him, so we don't know exactly. So it's alleged that he has a dual citizen. So in this case now, what would he have caused the learned Silk, Justice Ugo, to say, hey, okay, this is what the Constitution says. However, we are not going to, I'm not trying to tell them what to do, because Nigerians are looking for answers. When they say all eyes on the judiciary, it was taken out of context. It was because their hopes was laced on whatever comes out of that place. So they needed answers. We're looking at them to like idols who knows the law, who should come out to tell us what it should be. So now, when they brought this matter to say this man knew that ABCD was the case, and yet he contested the election, we're hoping to get, oh, this is what it should be. However, we cannot use that as a yardstick because it was brought in during this. Would it have cost them anything to do that? Is there anything in law that says they shouldn't dabble into that? I know we don't know some of these laws.
And again, the responsibility of a judge is invited in any matter to determine what is before the court. The court will not go on a frolic of his own, right, on a voyage of discovery.
But what if it's something that has to do with the Constitution, and these are the custodians of the law?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So that's why the issue that was raised by the petitioner with regards to the dual citizenship of the respondent is to the effect that the respondent has dual citizenship, to the effect that should disqualify him from contesting the election. But what I have sought to explain here by reference to Section 28 of the Constitution, that should only be a situation where that individual is not a citizen of Nigeria by birth. It is only when he's not a citizen of Nigeria by birth.
We don't have any way of knowing if this president of Nigeria
then that petitioner should have established that this individual in the first instance isn't a citizen by birth. Then you now say the citizenship he's holding of Nigeria is either by naturalization or registration. And haven't taken up a citizenship of another country that is not a country of his birth, then he should have forfeited the citizenship of Nigeria either by naturalization or registration. That is when he will not be qualified.
Yeah, that's why I said. That's why I said earlier that this is not even about Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who's
that's why I keep saying the citizen.
It's more like saying what is the status quo, what is in the law, what does the Constitution say.
That's what the law is.
But thank you for explaining the parts we didn't get from the tribunal yesterday. Thank God we have a lot of lawyers now. The Labour Party has rejected the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court upholding the declaration of Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress as winner of the February 25th, 2023 election. The National Publicity Secretary of the party, Obiora Ifo, made the party's position known in Abuja shortly after the court announced its decision. Ifo said the Labour Party watched with dismay and trepidation the dismissal of petitions by the 5-man panel of the Presidential Election Petition Court by Justice Haruna Samani yesterday, and they reject the outcome of the judgment in its entirety because justice was not served and it did not reflect the law and the desire of the people. He said Nigerians were witnesses to the electoral robbery that took place on February 25, 2023, which was globally condemned, but the tribunal in its wisdom refused to accept the obvious. He said what is at stake is democracy, and we will not relent until the people will prevail. We salute the doggedness of our team of lawyers who fearlessly expose the wrath in our system. We can only weep for democracy in Nigeria, but we refuse to give up on Nigeria. But he said details of the party's position will be presented after consultation with their lawyers after the certified true copy of the judgment is obtained. So he said, we urge all lovers of democracy to remain focused and hopeful because a new Nigeria is possible. Before we look into the reasons why they rejected the ruling, now, as a political party, when he says their lawyer, he's saluting the doggedness of their lawyers to expose the rot in the system. Okay, that's fair. He's speaking for their team, no doubt about that. But when you say that you're going to give us an aftermath of what you're going to do, these lawyers are not just children. Most of them are senior advocates of Nigeria. Now, some of the issues that the tribunal brought forth, technically speaking, do you think that some of this team of lawyers ought to have foreseen or known that these are some of the areas that the learned silks will be coming from and do something to actually mitigate that in terms of working for their party, their clients, the Labour Party, that is?
Well, the beautiful and excellent thing about the legal profession, which I belong, proudly so, is that that we're learned doesn't also mean that we're infallible. Just like the judges would say. The point of view they may look at something, right, may be different from the point of view of another. So it is not to imagine that if a senior advocate of Nigeria got into a matter and then he lost the matter, then it meant that he didn't know what he was doing. He was convinced and believed in his assessment of what he's done, and then the positions he was canvassing as being true and correct to the best of his understanding of the law and then application of the law and his knowledge. And then the judges are there to examine and review the positions of counsel and then all that has been presented before them.
All right.
And then make a finding and come one way or the other. They may depart from the way you view things. It doesn't really mean that you don't understand the law or that they have become perfect. The same way, the judges may also come through with a judgment. It doesn't also mean that they are super perfect. Okay?
All right.
They may mistake in the apprehension or understanding or interpretation of some law on some position. And that's why they too, whether before the Supreme Court, are not final because they are infallible. But especially for the Supreme Court that is even final, they are final not because they don't make mistakes, but because they are the final court.
All right.
So the justices have given their position. And that's why those who are dissatisfied with the outcome of the decision are saying, okay, we will review the decision of the court and then see if we can approach the Supreme Court for review.
All right, let's look at their reasons for rejecting the Presidential Election Court's judgment against its presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi. So, following the Presidential Election Petition Court's judgment that was dismissed, where they dismissed the allegation by the Labour Party and its candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, that the 2020 presidential election was rigged in favor of President Bola Tinubu, the court in its preliminary ruling that was delivered by Justice Abba Mohammed held that Obi and the Labour Party did not, by way of credible evidence, establish their allegation that election that held on February 25th was characterized by manifest corrupt practices. Similarly, the court also dismissed the allegation that President Bola Tinubu was convicted in the United States of America on a drug trafficking-related case. The court in its lead judgment in the joint petition that was filed by the Labour Party and its candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, held that evidence before it established that $460,000 fine that was imposed on Tinubu in the U.S. was in the civil matter. In view of all of this, Labour Party, through its National Publicity Secretary, spoke, which was what we saw. Now, a critical part of what came out of this judgment on all fronts yesterday is when the learned Silk said that INEC is free to determine the mode of transmission of results. If you look back at the ongoing incident at the International Conference Center on the day they were declaring the results, on the eve of Wednesday 1st, now the Kogi State governorship candidate, Senator Dino Melaye, and other party agents who were there said, hey, we don't understand what is going on here. What your agents gave us, what we saw at the polling units and your agent gave us at the polling units are not the same thing as to what we saw that is playing out here. Can you check this to ensure that it's better correct? Before the elections, these people came out full force, told Nigerians how that's INEC and Professor Mahmoud Yakubu from Chatham House to everywhere they could find, oh, this is a game changer, the beavers and all of that. If you may, when the justices say that they can actually, INEC can determine module of transmission of results. If what we were going to be getting in 2023 as a result, final result is status quo, where there are no electronic devices, where there are no digital transmission of results. In 2019, they told us that they didn't have a server, even when that was curious. And we're like, how do you even say you run a system and you don't have it? Okay, we'll let that go. Now there is a law they gave to us, and everybody was excited and went to the polls. And now you're coming out to say they are, even with all the, we're talking about hundreds of billion naira here, invested in getting these devices. And then you come out to say that they are free to, even though we have, please help us understand how tenable this is.
This is one aspect that interests me really, and it interests me because I'm a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and I require answerability and accountability to resources of state. Now, and decisions really that would also affect the resources of state. The Independent National Electoral Commission, established under Section 153 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and of course Section 1 of the Electoral Act 2022. No doubt, there's no argument that the Commission has the responsibility to conduct, coordinate, and supervise elections in this country. And by extension, they have vested in them the power to set the procedure and, if you like, guidelines for conduct of these elections. Now, some would say, just as the justice, that's where, with respect, I would differ a bit with justice. The extent to which INEC will have the free latitude, right, the freedom to organize and coordinate elections with respect to determining the procedure and how elections should go will end at some point. And what's that point, to the best of my knowledge, or my view, will end at the point they have set down the procedure. So meaning that we allow you have the latitude to decide without any interference by any individual, any authority, as an independent, one of the independent federal agencies established under Section 153, that what is this freedom? Design the procedure, the regulation, or forms, any what you like, documents or procedure, however you want to organize the election. Free, stay in your closet, in your office, your head office and all your state branches and all your local government offices. Do that, nobody's interfering. But when you are done so and you've come out to say, now we're done, nobody interfered with us, this is how the election is going to go. This is the manual for the conduct of this election. This is what we require of the Nigerian state for us to be able to conduct this election. This is the regulation to regulate everybody. This is the criteria for the conduct of elections. And then you've done that. You've come up with your regulation and you present to Nigerians. Now, when you present to Nigerians, it will mean that you are bound by it. That's the point, that if I were one of those justices, this is the Electoral Act. You're bound by the Electoral Act. And if the Electoral Act and this Constitution vested power in you on INEC, and the Electoral Act further give you responsibility to set the criteria and then the regulation, and you've come up with your regulation, which is not here. You've come up with your guidelines for the election. You had discussions with the political parties. You made it public to all Nigerians. You presented it to the political parties, IPAC and all of that. You met several times. You've presented to the entire world, like you mentioned, Chatham House in the UK and elsewhere, even in conferences in Nigeria, that this is what the Nigerian Constitution and the Electoral Act enabled us to do freely. We have got that freedom. We have designed this. This is how it's going to go. Now we have presented it to Nigerians. And you know what? In law, when you cause a person to shift a position by reason of your representation, and he relies on that, especially by your expertise, by your knowledge, by what you have power to do, and you cause people to shift position, you are held liable to it. So it should also apply that we rely on INEC as the only institution of government to coordinate our elections, to design how best we could have elections, to come out with regulations and guidelines on how we get the best election. The best election is what we want. Then we have given you the power to do so. You have finished your work and you've come to us and said you have come with that. Whatever you present to us, now the next is for us to shift our position, isn't it? Now Nigerians that would have not come out to vote, Nigerians that may not expend any money to move from point A to point B because they want to go and vote, rely 100% on that representation. convinced that they're going to have a credible election, committed resources and time. Some lost their lives, and then they came out to it. And then they relied on that representation. Not just coming out to it, they started by giving you money to enable you carry out that representation. That is to say, you say, give us 340, 350 billion naira so that we can deploy this technology that will enable us get credible election for Nigerians. The latitude, the leverage is the point of your conceptualizing this technology. Nobody interfered. So if anybody says INEC has the unlimited power to decide how to conduct elections, I would imagine that that's where it should stop. So then we've given you money, we've given you money, we've budgeted, you have expended money on what you think that is reasonable. If it is not important, it's not reasonable, and you expended our billions into it, and then you turn around to tell us, by the way, we dumped it. In fact, it is not important. In fact, we are not mandated to use it, then you should account for that money.
All right, in just 2 minutes, now from this judgment, Nigerians are feeling deceived. We are asking, like you said, where is our money? What should be the responsibility of citizens right now? Because violence is never a solution to anything, legally speaking.
Well, citizens have no choice but to abide by the law, to conduct themselves most orderly.
But INEC owe us an explanation.
Yes, apparently they do, but yes, citizens can call for responsibility and answerability.
Okay.
We have representatives in the National Assembly.
Okay.
We have elected president, elected government. Mm-hmm. If we put the pressure on our government, if it's a responsible government that listens to the people, and then through the civil society organizations, through other pressure groups, and Nigerians say, if this is what it is, and you knew this was going to be what it is, if it wasn't that important to be mandatory, why expend this much money? If you knew you were going to go back and even the courts are going to make it legitimate that what we had. And what's the essence of review of the 2010 Electoral Act to get the 2022? Is that there were mischiefs in the 2010 Electoral Act. There were limitations to it. And Nigerians cried out what those limitations were. If there was no other one, at least, the fact that Nigerians felt that whenever they conducted elections and they voted in point A, and the materials and the results would be taken to point B, whereas they would decide what numbers of votes, that they were not satisfied because there were usually disruptions and, if you like, manipulations between the point of voting, where if somebody got 5, and before it got to that other place, it became 7. And they didn't want this period, this gap, to continue to mar the electoral process and diminish the credibility of the outcome of our elections. Then Nigerians cried out. Civil society organizations, human rights organizations, including mine, we got involved in this process and we came out with the Electoral Act to at least deploy electronics. And then INEC were given the opportunity to say, give us a solution to this, and they came up with this. That look, if you finish voting here, it's their guideline. It will be transmitted right from there. So that the purpose of collation, like the laws, the judiciary, is sickening, really. Whatever you want to interpret in terms of collation, collate what is in the IREV. It's transmitted from here to that point, print it out and collate it, so that it won't be different with what we have. Then you say, no, it was not transmitted, and somebody tells us that they were not mandated to transmit.
All right. I think the way you're feeling, I think the millions of Nigerians, emotions are the same.
Yeah, we are citizens. We are first citizens before we became lawyers.
We are in a straight time, and they were talking about 300 and something billion naira invested into what you didn't use. Well, we hope that INEC will have some answers. We hope that the judiciary will have some answers. But thank you so much for being part of the conversation on ATM Open Conversation.
Always today. My pleasure. It's a wonderful platform, and I always appreciate each time this opportunity is given for us to reach out to citizens, to Nigerians.
Absolutely.
But don't lose hope. Remain hopeful. Anytime elections are called, it's your civic responsibility and it's your right to determine. That's the only way you can get involved in determining how you are governed. So we will not deter. We would continue to push ahead until we get it right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And that's been Open Conversation today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister at the Temple of Justice. On our fraud access to our money will put in the bank.
As always said, they are
tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the Tonte. Who